Package got delivered today, you're opening it up and you realize that it's a brand new board game you got from Kickstarter. So you're flipping through the rulebook, and as you struggle through it and you're trying to figure out words and you're looking up different things, it takes you a ton of time to get through this in order to figure out how to play the game. So then you think to yourself, you know what, I think I can make a video that would explain this 10 times better. It would save people a lot of time. I think people will like it. You know what, I want to do it. But then you think to yourself, well, how do I make a good video about a tutorial? I'm here to help you with that today. Let's get started. Hi, hope you're having an amazing day today. If you've ever seen my past tutorials and you like the way I film them, the way I structure them, the way I explain things, first off, thank you. I'm glad you enjoy the tutorials. Secondly, today I'm going to show you exactly how I do them. Now, one video I'll recommend to watch before going to this one is this one, which is how to make a good board game rulebook. If you understand what makes a good board game rulebook, I think it'll help a lot when you are explaining them in your videos. So first thing I do, aside from playing the game itself and knowing how to play, I also script out the entire video. Now, normally I don't do this. It's pretty different from my other videos because the other ones I'll just put like a bulleted list and then I'll talk about it as I go. But with board games, there are a ton of rules and you don't want to mess them up. You also want to provide the information as accurately as possible. You want to make a script that includes everything. Now, this is also kind of a double-edged sword because when you write a script word for word, you also don't want to fully depend on it. Because when you do, you start taking on kind of this reading tone, and you want to make sure that you're keeping that conversational tone. So be careful when you're scripting. So I would advise you to gauge yourself and don't read off a script more so than talk about how to play. You also want to remember here that the goal is to get people to play the game as fast as possible. So you also want to make sure you cut out everything that is unnecessary. You don't need to explain every single detail to the T, but instead you want to provide information that is sufficient enough for them to play the game. So to quickly recap, I start off by scripting my entire video, making sure that I look up any kind of rules, anything that looks kind of hazy on either BoardGameGeek or Google. I cross-reference my script with the rulebook to double check, make sure that you're not forgetting anything. And it also helps to look at like FAQs or things that people are confused often about for the game, and to also mention that, because if it confuses a lot of people online, I'm pretty sure it's going to confuse people when they're watching your video. So better to clarify those rules then and there. Now, secondly, you can use a teleprompter either with an iPad that reflects off a screen, something I'm going to play with in the future. But for now, I like it old school, so I like a nice piece of paper. I keep it below my desk actually when I'm talking about it. So when I'm doing a tutorial, I'll go ahead and look at it paragraph by paragraph and then talk about it right here in front of camera. Again, it makes it 100% more realistic and relatable and retainable for them if you're talking to the camera as if it is a discussion, more so than reading a script word for word. Remember, when people are watching your videos, they're either trying to avoid the rulebook or supplement it with the rulebook, or they want to see that information presented differently. Now, moving beyond the script, you'll have a camera set up with a tripod right in front of you. Assuming you have your entire studio set up and ready to go, which I did a video on, again, I'll link right up here. If you have a second camera and options for an overhead mount, that works out a lot because it'll save you a ton of time if you can just put a camera simultaneously above the table as you are teaching the tutorial. So having an overhead camera will literally cut your time in half. But if you don't, I don't. What I do first is I go through the entire setup, the entire board game discussion, how to play with my camera on a tripod, as you see here. Now, secondly, I'll go through the entire process again of setup and how to play, but this time doing overhead shots. So I'll lift up the camera on a tripod way higher, and then you're going to face the camera, angle it down so it's pointing at the table, and then you're going to show the components piece by piece. So this time it's going to go by way faster because you don't have to talk to the camera again because you already did the dialogue. So you just put components in and out of view. I also do them in about 10 to 15 second clips because that's generally a very good time point to use. Usually you only need like 3 to 5 seconds, but you always want to do double or triple that just in case you need it for later. Okay, so quick recap. We did our script and we cross-referenced it with the rulebook, and we're also double checking all the rules online and with BoardGameGeek, and to make sure that all the hazy rules have been clarified and scripted out detail by detail. Secondly, we did a tripod static shot where you're talking to the camera, explaining how to play the game, and then you're moving pieces step by step as you're going through the game. After you finish one round of teaching people how to play, if you don't have an overhead camera set up, totally fine, except it's going to double your time because now you have to go through it again doing overhead shots. So you can go ahead and set up your camera on a tripod, raise the legs higher so you'll be able to angle it down at your table. And then film 10 to 15 second clips of each setup and each component or the actions that you're trying to explain. Now, as I'm doing the setup, I also keep in mind one other big point, and that is when's a good time to include some slow motion B-roll? A lot of the times it's in the beginning because this is when you are kind of introducing the game and giving a general overview about how to play the game. So you can always mix it in your main video of you talking. You can also overlay some nice B-roll of like the components, showcase a bit of the game. Maybe you're trying to highlight specific components. This is a great time to include some nice slow motion B-roll. So as you're filming the script again, doing those overhead shots, keep in mind which parts can I do some motion B-roll for? Do I need a static shot for this? If anything, it's always good to have more that you can always use later on instead of having too little. You also need to be aware of the different camera settings that you need to use when you're doing a static shot like this versus when you're doing some slow motion handheld B-roll. Okay, so those are the 3 types of camera shots that we just filmed. We got our static tripod shot of us explaining the game. Secondly is the overhead shots of all the components. Thirdly is some slow motion B-roll, introducing or highlighting different components or aspects of the game. Now I want to show you a couple of tips that will be very useful when you are editing your video. I'm going to make this super short, easy, and simple. Here are 4 ways you can really upgrade the quality of your board game tutorials. Number 1, let's say you want to highlight a specific component. Let me show you how to do that. So make sure you select your clip, and then in the effects panel on the right side, you're going to type in Lumetri color. And then drag Lumetri color onto your clip. And from there, on your left side, you'll see the Lumetri color panel show up on here. Here, you can click on one of the masks. So let's say I want to highlight this big giant miniature right here. I'm going to take the circle, drag it right over top, and then you go to basic correction on your left side, and here you go to exposure, and if you increase that, then you'll increase the brightness of that circle. So you see how it makes a very distinct white circle here. Now what's really cool is that you can even change the color of this too. So if I go to temperature in the same panel and then move it all the way to the left, then whatever's in the circle will turn blue. And then if I go all the way to the right, you'll get warmer colors. And then for tint, it'll be the same thing, but this time if you go left, it makes it green, and to the right, it'll make it more pink and red. So you can play around with that mask. You can make it any shape you want. All you have to do if you want to change the shape, you go up to Lumetri color right here, and you have options to choose like a square, or if you have some kind of strange, weird shape, then you can just choose the pen tool. So like let's say if I want to highlight this strange shaped tile, then you can just draw along the tile and then do the same thing, right? So you can go to exposure, you can raise that. So now you only highlight this specific tile, you can make that blue again. There is full creative control on how you want to manipulate that specific mask. Number 2, let's say you want to blow something up because it's too small to see. One effect you can use for that is called magnify. So type in magnify in your effects panel, drag it onto your clip, and then if you see right in the center here, you'll see this zoomed up part of the tile, and you can make that circle bigger. So if you go to the left side here under magnify and you go to size, you can increase the size of that circle to make it bigger. Say you want to focus on the miniature here, even though it's already ginormous as it is. You can move it around. You can increase the magnification. If you go to magnification here and you increase it, then you zoom it in more, or you can decrease it. However you like to play with that. So number 2 is magnification. Number 3, what's really nice too is if you pair sound with text. So you want to point out this particular token here. To do that, you can click T on your keyboard, which will bring up the text tool, drag out a rectangular box, and then you can type out token. I like to make it a stark contrast so you can easily see it, so you can make it white against a black table. So here it says token, and the kicker here is that you can add a little sound effect to that. So one sound I use often is like a mouth pop from Epidemic Sound. So we go to mouth pop, drag it onto here. And you also want to make sure that sounds like this, especially if you're using it often to describe like token, miniature token, whatever you want to describe. If it's coming back to back, you don't make it super obvious because then it increases the chances that your audience will be more annoyed, and you want to make sure that it's subtle. So I always decrease to like -15 to 20. And then if you play it back, this is what you get. There you go, simple as that. And number 4 is for those that have amazing handwriting. This is especially great for you. So today I'm using my iPad, but as long as you have a tablet that has a drawing program and one where you can just draw on any kind of application with like a solid black background and transfer it over to your computer, that works. So in your iPad, there's an app called Procreate. Now you do have to pay for it, but honestly, I feel like it's the most worth it app to pay for on your iPad. So if you open up Procreate and you click on the plus symbol on the right side and click on the sub plus symbol, you want to make sure that your dimensions match the footage that you have here. So I have a 1920 by 1080 sequence, which is like typical for like 1080p timelines. You can make your canvas the same size, so I'll make it 1920 by 1080. But honestly, it doesn't really matter too much what size you make it because it's just a small symbol and you can adjust it in post, so not too big of a deal. And then click on create. And from there, you want to make sure that your background is a solid black color. So you go to the top right corner, drag this slider to the black part, and then you're going to drop this onto your canvas. That makes it black. And from your paint brushes, you can pick any kind you want. I personally like light pen because I like that little glow. It kind of masks how bad my handwriting is, which is why I chose light pen. And then if you go to the top right corner, move it to the white slider. Now whatever you draw is going to be in white on a black canvas. And then you can start screen recording and draw whatever you want. So I can do an arrow. That's a terrible arrow. I can do an arrow. I can do a circle. I can do a square. You can write a token. Whatever you like. And then from there, stop your screen recording. And then you're going to airdrop this onto your computer. And what's really cool is that you're going to see that animation that you drew here. So it looks so much better versus if it's just like a still picture, right? So all you're going to do is go to the top right corner, type in crop, and you're going to drag crop onto your clip. And you can cut it down, so left side. The biggest part here is you want to make sure you get rid of that bar, but honestly it doesn't matter too much to get rid of the rest of the black sides, but I can just do it so it's a little bit cleaner. And then from there, here's where the magic comes in. Under opacity, you're going to go under blend mode, which has a drop-down menu, and then you can click on screen. From there, boom, your entire background is gone, and the only thing that shows up is your arrow. And then you can move this arrow wherever you like. You can resize it to anything you want. You can even rotate it. And to save you even more time, what you can also do is click on the multi-select button on your keyboard, which is like the Windows button or the Apple button. Hold that and then click on opacity and then click on crop. Right click those, save preset, name the preset whatever you like. So here I named mine actually animated crop circle. And then the next time you do an animation on your iPad or your tablet, you can just take this preset that you made, drag it onto your clip, and then boom, you're welcome. That just saves so much time, so much time. You can make 3 more videos by the time you do this. Okay, so those were the 4 techniques. Let's get back to the studio. Actually, we're already in the studio. Let's just get back to the table. And that is how you make a board game tutorial with some pizzazz. So I hope you found that helpful. I'm excited to see what you guys come up with. Feel free to tag me anywhere across social media if you found this helpful and you end up making your own tutorials. But until then, I will see you all in the next video.